All right, everyone, there's big news now with regards to defending the southern border of the United States, which is that Trump's border wall has now cleared the next hurdle. And this is what I told people they should wait for, and they got all black-pilled. And this is definitely going to be fodder for a lot of his populistic fan base, which is, you know, that $2.5 billion that he appropriated from the Pentagon to improve and expand the wall on the southern border? What happened is that I think it was like really early this year or late last year, he did that. He said, well, as the executive, I can direct some of this discretionary Pentagon funding to whatever I deem necessary, especially under the auspices of the idea of a national emergency. He made that argument. The Ninth Circuit came in and issued an injunction. So he passed, you know, his executive action, says, okay, I'm taking the $2.5 billion, doing this, building this section of wall and improving this and building border posts and stuff. Congress kind of balked, but they couldn't stand in the way. But then the Ninth Circuit issued an injunction, which stopped him from doing anything. It was at this point that all of the fair-weathered Trump fans, which is funny because, you know, I'm not a conservative or a Republican. I'm an independent voter. I'm sitting there saying, you got to back Trump on this if this is what you believe in, because it takes time. All the Ann Coulters and stuff, they went completely apeshit. They went nuts, and they said, well, he's sold out. He's just he's a Bush Republican. And it seems like they suspended their ability to understand the U.S. political system. It's like they didn't understand that there was a separation of powers. And I got a lot of people, including some people who I know are long-term fans of my content too, jumping down my throat on this issue. And what I said was this, very plainly. Yes, it would be a wonderful world if Trump could just establish the fact in people's minds, hey, it is explicitly an executive authority to use this discretionary funding. Congress gives them untold billions every single year to do with whatever they want at the Pentagon. And the president, as the commander-in-chief, has the ability to shuffle that money around if there is some sort of emergency going on, to utilize that money as necessary. It's clear-cut. And it was clear that SCOTUS was going to side with him, which it now has, but it takes time. And people who are impatient and black-pilled, or you know, they're shilling in some cases, they just can't deal with that. So chalk up another win for the clankers. But here's a big caveat. People are saying, well, even the Young Turks today, the big news is, well, Trump gets a huge win on his border wall. That's true. Extremely big win. Keep one more thing in mind, though. There will be one more further legal challenge, almost certainly, at least in some situations. That is that some people and groups have land along the wall where wall is to be constructed, something other than just the seismic monitoring and a simple fence that's usually there now. There are some people there that own land that don't want to sell their land or deal with the fact that there's going to be a 30-foot tall, 2-foot deep barrier of high-quality steel on the back of their property. What do you do about them? Now, quite clearly, again, and I'm not a fan of eminent domain generally. Like Trump, one thing that rankled me was years ago when he came out and said, well, I'm a big fan of eminent domain. Haha, look at all the projects it lets us build. I'm of the mind that unless it is strictly necessary, eminent domain should not be used. It should be used very sparingly. If it is used, people should be compensated more than fairly. That is, the government should have to pay a premium on top, like in a private transaction, when you're like selling land or something. It's voluntary. There's no coercion. Having a fair market value makes sense. If there's involuntary coercion going on, it's a form of victimization. The person should be compensated far more. It should be at least 2 or 3 times what the property or inconvenience would normally be evaluated at. The government can pony up the fucking money. There's no problem with it. Maybe it should come out of government pensions in order to put the screws to them and make them more reluctant to use such a step. However, with the southern border, especially now that SCOTUS has legally weighed in and declared, yes, it is acceptable for Trump to declare this a national emergency, it is inarguable that he does have not only the right but the responsibility to utilize eminent domain. Absolutely. He has no choice. He would be not exercising the proper duties of his particular position if he were to ignore it, having declared a national emergency, gotten the money, to then stand back and not build the wall. Other people, if they stand in the way, are doing the same. The legislature, they're sworn to uphold the Constitution, help defend the country. But there will be a battle anyway. Because what'll end up happening now? Trump's got his money. The money's there. The backing of of SCOTUS is there. Now there will be legal battle after legal battle individually over eminent domain for land rights usage along the southern border. I'm not sure exactly why. By the way, at any time the government said, yeah, it's a great idea if private landowners own part of the border with Mexico. I'm not so sure that's a great idea. Maybe there should be a little strip of land down there that is not owned by private owners so that it can be developed specifically for border purposes. Then again, the inner libertarian in me says, well, yeah, but at the same time, you could just allow these people to kill anyone coming across the border because it invades their property and just let them exercise their natural property rights. Then the pragmatic monarchist in me says, yeah, but some of those people might disagree and say, well, it's okay if people come across, and you'd have a patchwork country like with the sanctuary cities that we already have. But he's got his funding. It's a huge victory. Make no mistake, I'm not trying to lessen the impact of this. It's a huge victory for Trump. It's a huge victory for the United States being able to actually secure its border. With the safe third country, Guatemala, and the will of the nation of Mexico to slow the tide by actually enforcing its existing immigration laws, Trump effectively has bypassed Congress now. He has effectively bypassed Congress on the wall and on the border in general. He has won. This is now a campaign promise fulfilled to build the wall. That's what it boils down to. This is going to be big for him in the election. This significantly ups his odds of re-election. However, keep in mind there will be a long holiday. Warning to all the Fuentes fans, to all the Coulter fans and stuff. This part is over now. And so Ann Coulter will say, oh, we'll think of it better late than never. Some stupid shit like that, I'm sure. What'll happen next is that months later, when she realizes, hey, you know, you've got to fight each eminent domain battle in court, and the executive branch can't unilaterally take people's land without compensation and without a court getting involved, when she realizes judicial supremacy over such things, she will get blackpilled again, and she'll come out and probably say the same stupid shit she was saying before. So keep that in mind. There will be some rhinos and neocons out there who will complain about the process, not realizing what's the alternative. The alternative is Trump as dictator. Well, I don't want the president to become a dictator, because what if the next president is an Obama? What if the next president's a George W., someone who doesn't understand anything about economics? Yeah, no thanks. I think I'll take my chances with a somewhat obstructionist government situation that nonetheless Trump, because of his strategic capabilities, has gone around anyway. He's used executive power and especially diplomacy to solve a problem when the legislature refused to touch it, for political reasons mainly. They refused to touch the issue at all, and the judiciary stood in his way. But he said, hey, SCOTUS is going to rule with me. It was a 5-4, close decision, but it did rule with him, which is what I said would happen, what was it, 6 months ago? And yet people were getting all black-pilled. Huge win for Trump, but keep in mind it's still going to be a slow process. Because parts of the border are held by people who are unfriendly towards the idea of bothering to staff the border. We've got to understand ranchers and shit like that. You got to realize that some of those states aren't very happy about the idea of closing them. Like California is not big on border control, as you know. San Diego area was. They bucked the trend and said fuck you to the whole state of California and said we will allow the border wall to go in San Diego proper. That was fine. Texas obviously will be on board, but some of those counties down there will fight their own state. This is going to be a long legal... Give Trump 4 more years. Here's my advice to the Coulterites. You can either have socialism, which I don't know why you'd want to. After years and years of declaring it the devil, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Or you can give Trump more time so that he can keep securing the border. It's going to take more than the next year of his first term. It's going to take a whole second term for him to solve the problem, even in large part because Congress spent so long doing goddamn fucking nothing. Congress sat on its ass, and president after president talked a big game and then ultimately didn't walk at all, fucking dropped down on the floor to roll around in their own filth on this issue, all the way back to Ronald Reagan. You know, Ronald Reagan, the wet dream of the Coulterites, the one that they beat off to at night. Oh, you're so great. Oh, Americana. Oh, hee hee tee hee, America #1. Oh, but fuck that Trump. My goodness, he respected the separation of powers. The fact that we have a split government for a goddamn good reason. It's called you want to slow things down. Preferably not as much as in a system like Italy, but you want to slow things down, generally speaking, because then bad decisions, hopefully they get stalled out and they just die. That's about all. Peace out.